I am Sarah Miller, I am 42 years old, and last Wednesday, I listened to my husband plan my murder while he stood 3 feet away from my bed. Before I tell you how I managed to survive the date he had set for my funeral, I want you to let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. It helps me feel less alone to know there are real people out there listening to this. It started with the smell. For 6 years, my husband, David, had made me a cup of chamomile tea every single night. It was our ritual. He would bring it to me in my favorite blue ceramic mug, the one with the chip on the rim, and he would kiss my forehead and say, "Sweet dreams, darling." It was the kind of marriage everyone in our gated community in Portland envied. David was handsome, successful, an international investor who swept me off my feet when I was feeling invisible. I was just the quiet woman running her late father's antique furniture business. He was the world traveler who chose me. But that Wednesday night, the tea didn't smell like flowers. I was sitting up in our king-sized bed, reading a magazine, when David walked in. He was wearing his silk pajamas, his hair perfectly combed even at 10 p.m. He smiled that dazzling smile that usually made my knees weak. "Here you go, Sarah," he said, setting the mug on the nightstand. "I put a little extra honey in it tonight. You've looked so tired lately." "Thank you," I said. I reached for the mug. As I lifted it to my lips, the steam hit my nose. Beneath the sweetness of the honey and the floral scent of the chamomile, there was something metallic. Something bitter and chemical. It reminded me of the smell of the cleaning solvent we used to strip varnish off old tables at the shop. My stomach turned. I looked at David over the rim of the mug. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't glancing at the TV. He was watching me. His eyes were locked on my throat, waiting for me to swallow. "Is it too hot?" he asked. His voice was smooth, but there was a tightness in his jaw. "Just a little," I lied. "I'll let it cool for a second." I set the mug down. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. I had been feeling groggy for weeks. I had been waking up with headaches that felt like hangovers, even though I don't drink alcohol. I had been missing appointments, forgetting conversations. David had told me it was stress. He told me I was getting old before my time. But looking at that tea, a cold realization washed over me. "It's not stress." "I'm going to run to the bathroom before I settle in," David said, pointing a thumb toward the hallway. "Drink up before it gets cold." The second he was out the door, I moved. I didn't think, I just reacted. I grabbed the mug, rushed to the ensuite bathroom, and poured the steaming liquid down the sink. I ran the tap for 2 seconds to wash it away, then filled the mug halfway with warm tap water. I rushed back to bed, placed the mug on the nightstand, and lay down. I turned off the bedside lamp. I pulled the duvet up to my chin. And I waited. I heard the toilet flush. Then, footsteps. Soft, deliberate footsteps on the plush carpet. David came back into the room. "Sarah," he whispered. I kept my eyes shut. I forced my breathing to be slow and rhythmic. In, out. In, out. Just like I was in a deep sleep. "Sarah, are you out already?" He was standing right over me. I could feel his body heat. I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the faint scent of toothpaste. Then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. He shook me. Not gently. It was a rough, testing shake. My head lolled to the side on the pillow. I made my body heavy, limp. It took every ounce of willpower I had not to flinch when he slapped my cheek. Lightly, but enough to wake anyone who was just dozing. I didn't move. "Good," he muttered. The warmth in his voice was gone. It was replaced by a cold, flat tone I had never heard before. "Out like a light." He walked away from the bed. I expected him to leave the room, to go to his home office like he usually did when he had late-night calls with Tokyo. But he didn't leave. He walked toward the window seat on the far side of the room. I cracked my eyelids open just a fraction. The room was dark, lit only by the moonlight filtering through the curtains and the faint glow of the street lamps outside. David knelt on the floor near the window. He pulled a small tool from his pocket. It looked like a flathead screwdriver. What is he doing? I screamed internally. He jammed the tool into the gap between the hardwood floorboards. With a sharp grunt of effort, he pried one of the boards up. My blood ran cold. That was my house. I had lived there for 15 years. I knew every creak, every corner. I had no idea the floorboards near the window were loose. David reached into the hole in the floor and pulled out a metal box. It was a heavy, gray lockbox, the kind you buy at an office supply store. He set it on the window seat and punched in a code. Click. He opened the lid. Even in the dim light, I could see stacks of cash. Thick bundles of $100 bills. Beside the cash, there were several small booklets. Passports. Not one, but 4 or 5 of them. And then, he took out his phone. He dialed a number and put it on speaker, keeping the volume low. It's done, David said. She's out. The dosage was double tonight. My lungs burned. I needed to gasp, but I held my breath. A voice answered on the other end. A woman's voice. It was distorted by the speakerphone, but it sounded terrifyingly familiar. Are you sure? The woman asked. She was acting weird at dinner. Asking too many questions about the trust fund. She doesn't suspect a thing, David scoffed. He was flipping through one of the passports. She thinks she's losing her mind. I have her convinced she has early onset dementia. She's ready to sign the power of attorney just to get some rest. We can't wait for the signature, Victor, the woman said. The bank is asking questions about the transfer. We need to move up the timeline. Victor? Who is Victor? I know, David, no, Victor, said. He looked over his shoulder at my sleeping form. A cruel smirk twisted his lips. Thursday. I booked her a spa day at the Cliffside Resort. We'll do it there. A tragic slip on the hiking trail. Grieving husband, shock, no witnesses. Thursday. That was 2 days away. Thursday is perfect, the woman said. I'll have the papers ready for the life insurance claim immediately. I love you, David said. I love you too, the voice replied. And then I recognized the voice. It hit me harder than the realization of the murder plot. The cadence, the slight lisp on the S. It was Jessica. My sister. My baby sister, who I had practically raised after our mother died. The room spun. I wanted to vomit. My husband and my sister were planning to kill me on Thursday to collect my life insurance and steal my inheritance. David hung up the phone. He put the cash and passports back into the box, locked it, and shoved it back into the hole in the floor. He hammered the board back into place with the heel of his hand. Then, he stood up, stretched, and walked back to the bed. He climbed in beside me, pulled the covers up, and kissed my cheek. Good night, Sarah, he whispered into my ear. Enjoy your last few days. I lay there in the dark, tears streaming silently into my pillow, listening to the steady breathing of the monster sleeping next to me. To understand how shattered I was in that moment, lying next to a man who wanted me dead, you have to understand what my life looked like 3 months ago. I thought I was the luckiest woman in Oregon. I met David, or Victor, as I now knew him, 2 years ago at an estate auction. I was bidding on a set of Victorian dining chairs for my shop, Miller Antiques. He was bidding on the same set. He let me win. Afterward, he approached me with 2 coffees and said, I figured if I couldn't have the chairs, I should at least treat the woman who has such exquisite taste. He was charming. He told me he was an angel investor, specializing in tech startups in Europe. He traveled a lot, which explained why he had no family in town and why his schedule was erratic. We married 6 months later. It was a whirlwind. I was 40, unmarried, and lonely. My father had passed away the year before, leaving me the business and a substantial portfolio of properties. I was vulnerable, and David knew exactly how to play me. He was the perfect husband. He cooked. He brought me flowers for no reason. He took an interest in my antique restoration work. And he got along famously with Jessica. Jessica is my half-sister, 10 years younger than me. We have different fathers. Hers was a musician who left before she was born, mine was a hard-working businessman who raised us both. When Dad died, he left the bulk of the estate to me, simply because I was the one running the business, while he left Jessica a generous monthly allowance. Jessica had always been difficult. She liked expensive things. She liked parties. She hated working. But since David came into the picture, she had seemed to mature. She came over for dinner almost every night. "You're so lucky, Sarah," Jessica would say, watching David refill my wine glass. "Most guys his age want 20-year-olds. David really loves you for you." It sounded like a compliment, but there was always a barb in it. A reminder that I was plain, a bit overweight, and usually covered in sawdust, while David was like a model out of a GQ magazine. The cracks in this perfect picture started appearing about 3 months ago. It began with small things. I would put my keys in the bowl by the door, and the next morning, they would be in the refrigerator. I would leave my laptop open on my desk with a spreadsheet running, and when I came back from the bathroom, the laptop would be closed and the file deleted. "You must have forgotten to save it, honey," David would say, rubbing my shoulders. "You've been working too hard." Then came the physical symptoms. The fatigue. It wasn't just tiredness, it was a heavy, leaden exhaustion that made my limbs feel like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I started sleeping 10, 12 hours a night, yet I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. One morning, about 6 weeks ago, I woke up and reached for my laptop on the nightstand. It was hot. Scorching hot. The fan was whirring loudly. "David?" I called out. He was in the bathroom shaving. "Yeah, babe? Were you using my laptop?" I asked. "It's burning up." David poked his head out, foam on his chin. "No. Why would I? I have my own MacBook." "You probably left a heavy program running all night again." "I didn't," I insisted. "I shut it down completely." He gave me a pitying look. That look. The one you give a confused child. "Sarah, I watched you fall asleep with Netflix on. You didn't shut it down." I started to doubt myself. Did I? My memory felt like Swiss cheese. Then there was the incident with the jewelry. I was getting ready for a charity gala. I opened my jewelry box to find my mother's pearl necklace. It was gone. I tore the room apart. I was frantic. "David! The pearls! Someone broke in!" I screamed. David walked in calmly, opened the bottom drawer of my dresser, a drawer I almost never used, and pulled out the velvet case. "Is this what you're looking for?" he asked gently. I stared at it. I never put them in there." "You did, Sarah," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Last Tuesday. You said you were worried about burglars, so you hid them. Don't you remember?" I didn't remember. I had zero recollection of that. Terror seized my chest. Was I losing my mind? My grandmother had Alzheimer's. Was it happening to me? Jessica was there that afternoon, helping me pick a dress. When David left the room, she sighed loudly. "You know, Sarah," she said, examining her fingernails. "I'm really worried about you. Yesterday, you called me and asked me the same question 3 times in 5 minutes." "I did?" "Yes. About the color of my new car. It's getting scary, sis. Honestly, if it weren't for David, I don't know who would take care of you. You're becoming a burden." A burden. The word cut deep. Maybe you should let David handle the finances for a while, Jessica suggested casually. Just until you get your head straight. You don't want to accidentally bankrupt Dad's company because you forgot to pay a bill. I looked at her. She looked so concerned. Her big eyes were full of sympathy. I didn't see the shark swimming behind them. I didn't realize that every time I forgot something, it was because David had moved it. I didn't realize that the laptop was hot because he had been up all night transferring my files and accessing my bank accounts while I was drugged. I didn't realize that the fog in my brain was chemically induced by the chamomile tea I drank so gratefully every night. I was a puppet, and they were tangling my strings, preparing to cut them. The psychological warfare intensified 2 weeks ago. It wasn't just keys and jewelry anymore. It was my identity. I received a notification from my bank about an overdraft. I was shocked. I had over $200,000 in my personal checking account. I logged in, or tried to. My password was invalid. I tried the backup questions. Mother's maiden name. Invalid. First pet's name. Invalid. I called the bank in a panic. Mrs. Miller, the representative said. We show that you came into the branch yesterday morning and changed all your security questions. You also withdrew $50,000 in cash. That's impossible. I cried, gripping the phone. I was at the shop all day yesterday. We have you on security footage, ma'am. You were with your husband. I hung up, shaking. When David came home, I confronted him. The bank said I was there. They said I took out money. David sighed deeply. He sat me down on the sofa and held my hands. His palms were warm, comforting. Sarah, he said softly. I didn't want to tell you this. I wanted to protect you. Tell me what? You were there. You insisted on taking out the cash. You said you needed it to buy a vintage car. For your dad. My dad is dead, David. I screamed. I know, he said, tears welling up in his own eyes. But you didn't know that yesterday. You were confused. You were crying. You made a scene in the lobby. I had to go along with it just to get you home. I collapsed back onto the sofa. I had no memory of this. None. It was like a black hole in my brain. Why didn't you stop me? I sobbed. I tried. You got aggressive. You threw your purse at the teller. He stroked my hair. Baby, I think it's time we see Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans was a new concierge doctor David had found. He said our old GP was too old-fashioned. The next day, David drove me to a sleek private clinic. Dr. Evans was a young man with a sharp suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He listened to David recount my episodes, the forgetfulness, the aggression, the delusion about my dead father. I sat there, mute, feeling like a specimen in a jar. It sounds like a rapid-onset dissociative fugue, possibly linked to early dementia, Dr. Evans concluded, barely looking at me. I'm going to prescribe a heavy sedative to help her sleep and a cognitive stabilizer. But Mrs. Miller, you cannot be making financial decisions right now. It's dangerous. He turned to David. Have you set up a power of attorney? Not yet, David said, looking down at his hands like a grieving saint. She's resistant. Sarah, the doctor said sternly. If you don't sign that authority over to your husband, the state could intervene. They could declare you incompetent and put you in a facility. Is that what you want? A facility. Locked away. The thought terrified me. No, I whispered. Then let David help you, Jessica said. She had come with us for support. She squeezed my hand. Just sign the papers, Sarah. Let David handle the stress. You just rest. They drove me home. I felt broken. Defeated. I looked at David, my savior, and Jessica, my rock, and I felt so guilty for being such a burden to them. That night, David brought the papers to the bedroom along with my tea. "Just a temporary measure," he said, uncapping a pen. "Just until you get better. This gives me access to the business accounts and the trust, so I can pay the bills and manage the investments while you heal." I held the pen. The letters on the page swam before my eyes. General durable power of attorney. Unlimited access. My hand trembled. Something in my gut, a tiny, primal instinct, screamed, "Don't do it." I'm too tired tonight, David, I said, putting the pen down. "I can't focus. Let me sleep on it. I'll sign it Wednesday night." David's jaw tightened. For a split second, the mask slipped. His eyes went cold. "Sarah, we need to get this done." "Wednesday," I insisted, crawling under the covers. "I promise." "Wednesday." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Okay. Wednesday. Drink your tea." That was the night before the night I poured the tea down the sink. That instinct saved my life. Because if I had signed those papers, I suspect I wouldn't have even made it to Thursday. The morning of the tea incident, Wednesday morning, something happened that finally gave me the strength to doubt them. David had left early for a golf meeting. I decided to get out of the house. I felt suffocated. I drove to a small diner on the edge of town, a place called Lou's where the coffee was strong and nobody knew who the Millers were. I was sitting in a booth, staring at a plate of untouched eggs, when I felt eyes on me. Across the aisle, an older man was reading a newspaper. He wore a tweed jacket that had seen better days and a fedora hat resting on the table. He didn't look like a threat, he looked like a retired geography teacher. But his eyes were sharp, gray, and focused intensely on me. When the waitress came to refill my coffee, the man stood up. He walked past my table on his way to the register. As he passed, he stumbled slightly, catching himself on the edge of my booth. "Pardon me, ma'am," he grumbled. I felt something slide into my hand. A piece of stiff paper. I looked up, startled. The man locked eyes with me. "Don't look at it now," he murmured, barely moving his lips. "Check the name Jennifer Walsh. And don't drink the tea." My heart stopped. "Don't drink the tea." He walked to the counter, paid his bill with cash, and walked out the door without looking back. I waited until he was gone. I opened my hand. It was a business card. Lincoln Vance. Private Investigations. There was a phone number handwritten on the back. My hands were shaking so badly I spilled coffee on the table. How did he know about the tea? Who was Jennifer Walsh? I rushed to my car. I didn't go home. I drove to the public library 3 towns over. I was paranoid that David had put spyware on my phone or laptop, which, as it turned out, he had. I found a computer in the back corner. I typed in Jennifer Walsh, Seattle. The search results loaded. My breath hitched in my throat. Missing woman presumed dead. There was a photo. Jennifer Walsh was a brunette, around my age, with a slightly curvy build. She looked eerily like me. She had disappeared 2 years ago from a hiking trail in Washington state. Her body was never found. I scrolled down to the details. She was a wealthy widow. She had recently married a man named Damon Vane. I clicked on the photo of the husband. The man in the photo had a beard. He had glasses. His hair was blonde. But I knew those eyes. I knew the shape of that nose. I knew the way he held his posture, slightly arrogant, shoulders back. It was David. He had dyed his hair. He had shaved the beard. But it was him. I read on. Damon Vane was cleared of suspicion due to a solid alibi. He claimed his wife was suffering from depression and had wandered off. He collected a $2 million life insurance policy and moved abroad. I sat back in the library chair, the room spinning around me. It wasn't dementia. It wasn't stress. I was being groomed for slaughter. The man in the diner, Lincoln, must have been tracking him. He knew. I pulled out my phone. I wanted to call the number on the card right then and there. But then I remembered David's gift from last month, a new iPhone. He probably tracked my location. I needed to act normal. I needed to go home, pretend to be the confused, sick wife, and find concrete proof. Because if I went to the police with just a resemblance in a photo, David would talk his way out of it. He was a master manipulator. He would say I was delusional again. I needed proof that couldn't be denied. I drove home. I cooked dinner. I listened to Jessica talk about her new boyfriend, who I now realized didn't exist, or was just a cover for David. I watched David play the loving husband. And when he made the tea that night, I remembered the old man's words. Don't drink the tea. That brings us back to the bedroom. Back to the moment Victor, shoved the box back under the floorboards and went to sleep. I lay in the dark for what felt like hours. David's breathing had deepened into a rhythmic snore. He was a heavy sleeper. It was the arrogance of a man who thought he had total control. He thought I was comatose beside him. I slowly, agonizingly slowly, slid my legs out from under the duvet. Every movement was a risk. If he woke up, if he saw me awake after I supposedly drank a double dose of sedatives, the game was over. He would know. And he might just kill me right then and there. I crept across the carpet. My bare feet made no sound. I reached the window seat. The moonlight was brighter now. I knelt down. I didn't have the tool David used, but I had noticed earlier that the wood was splintered where he pried it. I dug my fingernails into the gap. I pulled. It didn't budge. I took a breath, praying to whatever God was listening, and pulled harder. The board gave a low groan. I froze. I looked at the bed. David shifted. He grunted, rolled over, and scratched his nose. Then he went still again. I waited a full minute before moving. I lifted the board just enough to slide my hand in. I felt the cold metal of the box. I pulled it out. He had locked it. I cursed silently. But then I remembered something. David was a creature of habit. He used the same pin for everything. His birthday. 1014. I turned the tumblers. 1, 0, 1, 4. Click. It opened. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped the lid. I angled the box toward the moonlight. I saw the money again. Stacks of hundreds. But I ignored the cash. I went for the documents. I picked up the passports. Republic of Ireland. Name, Sean O'Connell. Photo, David with red hair. Canada. Name, Michael Reed. Photo, David with a mustache. United Kingdom. Name, Victor Petro. Photo, David, exactly as he looked now. Victor Petro. That was his real name. Or at least, the name he was using now. Beneath the passports, there was a manila envelope. I opened it. Photos fell out. They were candid shots of women. A blonde woman getting into a car in Denver. A redhead walking a dog in Phoenix. Jennifer Walsh smiling at a cafe in Seattle. And me. There were photos of me from 2 years ago, at the auction where we met. He had been stalking me before he even approached me. There were photos of me at the bank. Photos of me sleeping in this very bed. He collected us. We were trophies. But at the bottom of the box, something glittered. I reached in and pulled it out. It was a ring. A vintage sapphire ring surrounded by diamonds. I clutched it to my chest, a silent scream building in my throat. It was my mother's ring. The one I had lost 6 months ago. The one David had helped me search for, holding me while I cried because I thought I was irresponsible. He had stolen it. He kept it as a souvenir. And next to it was another ring. A simple gold band. I recognized it from the photo of Jennifer Walsh. It was her wedding ring. He kept the rings of the wives he killed. I was looking at a graveyard in a box. I took my phone from my pajama pocket. I didn't dare turn on the flash. I used the night mode on the camera. I took pictures of the passports, the ID cards, the photos of the women, the rings. And then I saw the notebook. A small, black moleskine tucked in the side. I opened it. It was a ledger. Seattle, Jennifer. Yield, $2.4 million. Expenses, $50,000. Status, closed. Denver, Amanda. Yield, $1.8 million. Expenses, $30,000. Status, closed. Portland, Sarah. Est yield, $4.5 million, business plus insurance. Timeline, Thursday. My name. My price tag. $4.5 million. That was what my life was worth to him. And underneath my entry, a note in handwriting that made me want to retch. It was loopy, feminine handwriting. Jessica's. Note, J takes 40%. V takes 60%. Clean break after Thursday. My sister sold me for 40%. I felt a cold rage settle over me. The fear evaporated. The sadness vanished. All that was left was a burning, icy need for vengeance. They wanted to kill Sarah Miller? Fine. The old Sarah Miller, the weak, trusting, forgetful Sarah, died the moment I opened this box. The woman closing the lid was someone else entirely. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I locked the box. I slid it under the floor. I pressed the board down until it sat flush. I crawled back into bed. I lay next to Victor Petro. I listened to his heartbeat. Thump. 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 Enjoy it while you can, Victor, I thought. Because I'm going to stop it. Thursday was D-Day. That meant I had less than 24 hours to flip the script. When I woke up on Wednesday morning, the morning of the planned accident, I put on the performance of a lifetime. I groaned, rubbed my eyes, and acted dazed. David? I mumbled. What time is it? David was already dressed, tying his tie in the mirror. He watched me through the reflection. It's 8 a.m., sleepyhead. You were out cold. How do you feel? Groggy, I said, slurring my words slightly. My head feels heavy. That means the medicine is working, he said cheerfully. Dr. Evans said deep sleep is what your brain needs to repair itself. He walked over and kissed my cheek. I have to run to the office for a few hours to wrap up the Tokyo deal. Jessica is coming over at noon to take you to lunch, and then tomorrow is our spa day. Okay, I whispered. I'll just rest here. Good girl. As soon as his Tesla pulled out of the driveway, I was up. I didn't call the police. Not yet. David was too smart. If police cars showed up, he might have an escape plan. He had passports. He had cash. He could disappear in an hour. I needed to trap him. I went to the closet, dug into the back of my winter coat pocket, and pulled out the business card. I dialed the number. Vance, a gruff voice answered on the first ring. It's Sarah Miller, I said. I didn't drink the tea. There was a pause. Then a long exhale. Smart lady. Are you safe? He's gone for a few hours. I found the box, Lincoln. I saw the passports. I saw Jennifer's ring. You found the box? Lincoln sounded impressed. Okay, listen to me carefully. Do not confront him. He is dangerous. We need to get you out of there. No, I said firmly. I'm not leaving. Sarah, he's going to kill you tomorrow. I know. He's planning an accident at the cliffside resort. But if I run now, he disappears. He goes to the next state, finds the next Sarah, and kills her too. I saw the passports, Lincoln. He has 5 of them. He'll never stop. So what do you want to do? I want to catch him. I want to catch him trying to do it. I want him to rot in prison for the rest of his life. Silence on the line. Then, I'm 10 minutes away. Meet me at the park behind your subdivision. Wear a hoodie. Leave your phone at home. I met Lincoln at the park bench by the duck pond. He looked even more disheveled than he had at the diner, but his eyes were sharp. He had a duffel bag with him. I used to be Seattle PD, Lincoln explained, handing me a coffee. I worked the Jennifer Walsh case. I knew Damon Vane, David, did it. I just couldn't prove it. The body was gone, the scene was clean. He walked away with the money and laughed in our faces. I retired, but I never stopped looking for him. He has my sister, I said, my voice breaking. She's helping him. I figured, Lincoln nodded. She's the beneficiary if you die without a husband, right? And if you signed that power of attorney, David gets control before you even die. They're splitting the pot. Lincoln opened his bag. He pulled out a tiny black device, no bigger than a button. This is a high-gain listening device. Can you plant it in the kitchen? Or the living room? Somewhere they talk. I can do better, I said. I can put it in his pocket. Too risky. Just stick it under the kitchen island counter. And wear this. He handed me a necklace. It looked like a cheap pendant, but on the back, there was a tiny microphone hole. It records to a cloud server. I'll be listening in a van down the street. What's the plan? I asked. Let him take you to the resort tomorrow. I'll have a team there, private security and some friends from the Oregon State Police who owe me favors. We'll wait until he makes the move. We need him to commit to the act. Attempted murder is a life sentence. And tonight? Tonight is the most dangerous part, Lincoln warned. He needs you to sign those papers tonight. If you don't sign, he might panic and try to kill you early. If you do sign, he has no reason to keep you alive until tomorrow. So I have to stall, I said. You have to be the best actress in the world, Sarah. Can you do that? I thought about the box. I thought about the ring. I thought about the sneer in Jessica's voice when she called me a burden. I can do it, I said. I ran back to the house. I stuck the bug under the granite countertop of the kitchen island. I put the necklace on, tucking it inside my shirt. At noon, the doorbell rang. It was Jessica. She was holding a Tupperware container and smiling that sweet, poisonous smile. Hey, sis, she chirped. I brought you some homemade soup. David said you were feeling groggy, so I thought this would perk you up. I looked at the soup. It was tomato basil, my favorite. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that it was laced with enough sedatives to kill a horse. Thanks, Jess, I said, hugging her. You're the best sister in the world. I let her into the house. The trap was set. But I didn't know that things were about to go wrong in a way neither Lincoln nor I had anticipated. I let Jessica into the house, and the scent of tomato basil soup filled the hallway. It should have been a comforting smell. It was the soup our mother used to make for us on rainy days in Oregon. But as Jessica walked past me into the kitchen, humming a little tune, the smell made my stomach churn. I knew, with a sickening certainty, that this wasn't just lunch. It was the prelude to my end. You look terrible, Sarah, Jessica said, setting the Tupperware on the island, right above where I had planted the listening device. She reached out and smoothed my hair, her touch lingering a second too long. Pale as a ghost. Has David been taking good care of you? He's wonderful, I said, forcing my voice to sound thick and slow, playing the part of the medicated, confused wife. I feel so heavy. My head is swimming. Well, eat this, she said, popping the lid. It's warm. It'll help you sleep. She ladled a bowl for me. I watched her hands. They were steady. No shaking. No hesitation. She was serving poison to her own sister without blinking an eye. I'm not very hungry, I mumbled. Just a few spoonfuls, she insisted, pushing the bowl toward me. For me? Please? I sat down. I lifted the spoon. My hand trembled, that wasn't acting. I brought the spoon to my lips, let the liquid touch my tongue, and then pretended to gag. I can't, I choked out, pushing the bowl away. I feel sick. I need the bathroom. I stumbled toward the powder room down the hall. As soon as I closed the door, I spat the tiny amount of soup into the sink and rinsed my mouth furiously. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were wide, terrified. Get it together, Sarah, I told myself. You have to go back out there. I flushed the toilet to make noise, then walked back to the kitchen, slumping my shoulders. I'm sorry, Jess, I said. My stomach is just. It's okay, she said soothingly. Why don't you go lie down on the sofa in the living room? I'll clean up here and make you some herbal tea. Okay, I whispered. I shuffled to the living room and collapsed onto the sofa, pulling a throw blanket over me. I closed my eyes, regulating my breathing to mimic deep sleep. From the kitchen, I heard the clatter of dishes. Then, silence. Then, a tap on her phone screen. She was making a call. Hey, baby, Jessica's voice floated from the kitchen. It was different now. The concern was gone, replaced by a sultry, excited tone. Yeah, I'm at the house. No, she didn't eat the soup. She's nauseous. Probably the dosage you gave her last night was too high. My heart hammered against my ribs. The necklace recorder around my neck felt hot against my skin. Capture this, I prayed. Capture every word. Don't worry, Jessica continued. She's out on the couch. Drooling on the pillow. She's a mess, Victor. Honestly, it's pathetic. Victor. She used his real name. That was the nail in the coffin. Did she sign the papers? Jessica asked. A pause. Tonight? Okay. Make sure she signs them before you give her the final cocktail. We need access to the offshore accounts by Friday morning if we want to make the flight to Brazil. Brazil. So that was the plan. Kill me Thursday, empty the accounts Friday, disappear to South America by the weekend. I know, Jessica laughed. A cruel, sharp sound. I can't wait either. God, I'm so sick of this town. I'm sick of playing the doting sister. Do you know how hard it is to be nice to her? She's so needy. Tears leaked from my closed eyes, soaking into the cushion. This was the girl I had taught to ride a bike. The girl I had held when she got her heart broken in high school. The girl whose tuition I had paid when our father's estate was tied up in probate. She's dead weight, Victor, Jessica said. Literally. After tomorrow, we'll be free. Just you and me. She hung up. I heard her footsteps approaching the living room. I forced my body to go limp. I let my jaw slacken. I felt her standing over me. Goodbye, Sarah, she whispered. Then she did something that chilled me to the bone. She leaned down and spat on the floor, right next to my face. She grabbed her purse and walked out the front door. As soon as the lock clicked, I sat up. I wiped the tears from my face. I wiped the spot on the floor where she had spat. I wasn't sad anymore. The grief had burned away, leaving something harder, sharper in its place. I checked the bug under the island. It was still there. I checked my necklace. The red light had blinked off, it had recorded everything. I had them. The hours between Jessica leaving and David coming home were the longest of my life. I paced the house like a caged tiger. I replayed the plan Lincoln and I had made. Wait for the signal. Don't act too early. Get him to confess. At 6 p.m., I heard the Tesla pull into the driveway. I ran to the bedroom, messed up my hair, and lay on top of the covers. David walked in 10 minutes later. He was carrying a garment bag and a bottle of wine. "Honey," he called out. "I'm home." He came into the bedroom. He looked electric. There was a bounce in his step, a brightness in his eyes that I now recognized as the adrenaline of a predator about to kill. "Look at you," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Still resting? You really are under the weather." "I think I'm getting a flu," I lied. "Well, I have just the cure," he said, holding up the wine. "A vintage Cabernet. And I picked up steaks from that butcher you like. I'm going to make us a special dinner. A pre-celebration for our trip tomorrow." "That sounds nice," I murmured. "And," he added, his eyes darkening slightly, "we need to handle that paperwork tonight, Sarah." I spoke to the bank. "If we don't get that power of attorney signed and notarized, I have a notary coming at 8 o'clock, we might lose the bid on the new property." "Okay," I said. "I'll sign it. Whatever helps." He smiled. "That's my girl. Why don't you freshen up? Put on something nice. Let's make tonight special." I went to the bathroom. I washed my face. I applied a little makeup to hide the paleness. I put on a black dress, morning clothes, though he didn't know it. Beneath the dress, the necklace recorder rested against my breastbone. I walked downstairs. David had set the dining table with candles. He had dimmed the lights. Classical music was playing softly. It was the perfect romantic setting. It was a stage. He served the food. Filet mignon, medium rare. Asparagus. And a glass of deep red wine. "To us," he said, raising his glass. "To the future." "To the future," I echoed. I touched the glass to my lips but didn't drink. I pretended to sip, watching him over the rim. He drank deeply. He was celebrating already. We ate in relative silence. He did most of the talking, rambling about how great the spa resort would be, how the sea air would clear my head. "You know, Sarah," he said, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day. About feeling like a burden." "I never said that," I corrected him gently. "Jessica said that." Right. But you feel it, don't you? The confusion? The memory loss? "It's terrifying," I said, leaning into the trap. "I feel like I'm losing myself." "That's why I'm here," he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "To take the weight off. Once you sign those papers tonight, you won't have to worry about anything ever again. I'll take care of everything. The money, the house, your legacy." "My legacy?" I asked. "Yes. You've built so much. It would be a shame for it to fall apart just because, well, because you aren't capable anymore." He stood up and went to the sideboard. He picked up the folder of documents. "The notary is running late," he said smoothly. "But we can sign them now, and he can stamp them when he gets here. I just need your signature right here." He placed the papers in front of me. He placed a heavy Mont Blanc pen next to them. And then, he turned back to the kitchen counter. "And of course," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Your tea." He brought the blue mug over. The steam rose in the candlelight. "Special blend tonight," he said. "Extra honey. To help you sleep through the night so you're fresh for the drive tomorrow." I looked at the papers. I looked at the tea. I looked at the man I had loved for 2 years. I saw the monster beneath the skin. I saw the way he watched me, hungry, impatient. I picked up the pen. David's breath hitched. He was so close. I hovered the pen over the signature line. "David," I said softly. "Yes, darling? Do you remember where we met?" He blinked, surprised by the question. "Of course. The auction. The dining chairs." "No," I said, putting the pen down. "I mean before that." He frowned. "We didn't meet before that." "I think we did," I said. My voice was no longer slurred. It was crystal clear. "I think you saw me at the bank the week before. And I think you saw Jennifer Walsh at a coffee shop in Seattle 2 years before that." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the refrigerator humming and the blood rushing in my ears. David's smile didn't disappear instantly. It froze. It became a rictus, a mask that was slipping off. "I don't know what you're talking about, Sarah," he said, his voice tight. "You're having an episode. Drink your tea." "I don't want the tea, Victor," I said. The name hung in the air like a gunshot. "Victor." He went very still. It was the stillness of a viper before it strikes. He slowly set down his wine glass. "What did you call me?" "Victor Petro," I said, standing up. I gripped the edge of the table to steady my shaking legs. "Or is it Sean O'Connell? Or Michael Reed? You have so many passports in that box under the floorboards, it must be hard to keep track." David's face changed. The handsome, loving husband vanished completely. In his place was something cold, hard, and terrifyingly empty. His eyes lost their warmth. His posture shifted, his shoulders hunching slightly, his hands curling into fists. "You went through my things," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I saw the rings, Victor," I said, my voice rising. "I saw my mother's sapphire ring. And I saw Jennifer's wedding band. Did you give her a specialty too? Did she look at you with love while you poisoned her?" He laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Jennifer was smarter than you. She figured it out way earlier. I had to rush that one." He started walking around the table toward me. Slow, deliberate steps. "You think you're clever, Sarah," he sneered. "You think finding a box makes you safe? You just signed your death warrant. I was going to let you go peacefully. A nice sleep, a little shove off a cliff. Quick. Painless. But now?" He picked up the steak knife from the table. "Now it's going to be messy," he whispered. "A home invasion gone wrong. Tragic. Burglars broke in, killed the wife, husband survived with injuries. It happens all the time. You won't get away with it," I said, backing up toward the kitchen island. "People know." "Who knows?" he scoffed. "Your sister?" "Jessica is outside right now, waiting for the signal to come in and help me clean up. She's counting the money already." "The police know," I said. "Lincoln Vance knows." That name stopped him. A flicker of genuine fear crossed his face. "Vance? That washed-up old drunk? He's been chasing ghosts for years. No one listens to him." "They're listening now," I said. I pulled the necklace out from my dress and held up the pendant. "Because they're listening to this. Right now. Live." Victor stared at the pendant. His face turned a deep, violent shade of red. "You bitch," he snarled. He lunged. He moved faster than I expected. He vaulted over the corner of the table, the knife glinting in the candlelight. I screamed and threw the heavy ceramic tea mug at him. It hit him in the shoulder, splashing hot liquid and honey all over his silk shirt, but it didn't stop him. He grabbed my hair. I felt a sharp pain as he yanked my head back. The knife came up to my throat. "I'll kill you before they even get through the door," he roared. Now! I screamed. The sound of shattering glass filled the house. The French doors leading to the patio exploded inward. Two figures in black tactical gear burst through the shower of glass. Police! Drop the knife. Victor hesitated, distracted by the noise. In that split second, I stomped on his instep with the heel of my shoe, hard. He held in pain and his grip on my hair loosened. I threw myself to the ground, rolling away from him. Drop it. Now. Lincoln Vance came through the kitchen door, his gun drawn and steady. Behind him were two uniformed officers. Victor looked around wildly. He was trapped. The arrogance, the calculation, it all drained away, leaving him looking like a cornered rat. It's not what it looks like, he shouted, raising his hands but still holding the knife. She's crazy. She attacked me. I was defending myself. We heard the whole thing, Victor, Lincoln said, his voice grim satisfaction. We heard the passports. We heard the confession about Jennifer. Put the knife down or I will drop you right here. Victor's eyes darted to the back door. He was calculating the distance. Don't do it, Lincoln warned. But Victor didn't run. He did something more pathetic. He dropped the knife and fell to his knees, bursting into fake tears. I didn't mean it, he sobbed, his voice cracking. She forced me. It was Jessica. It was all her idea. She threatened to kill me if I didn't help her. I stared at him from the floor, gasping for breath. It was sickening. Even now, he was trying to con his way out of it. Suddenly, the front door flew open. David? Is everything okay? I heard noise. Jessica walked in, carrying a crowbar. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the police, the broken glass, and Victor on his knees. She looked at me. She looked at the police. And then she looked at the crowbar in her hand. Drop the weapon, an officer shouted, training his gun on her. Jessica dropped the crowbar with a heavy clang. Her face went pale white. I was just checking on my sister, she stammered. Jessica Miller, Lincoln said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and attempted poisoning. No, she shrieked as the officer grabbed her arms. No, you don't understand. I didn't do anything. It was him. It was all David. She's lying. Victor shouted from the floor as they cuffed him. She planned the whole thing. She wanted the inheritance. You lying bastard. Jessica screamed, lunging at him, spitting and clawing even as the cops held her back. I did this for us. You told me you loved me. I never loved you, you stupid cow. Victor spat back. I used you. Just like I used her. I stood up slowly, brushing the glass shards off my dress. I watched them turning on each other, these two people who claimed to be my family. They were ripping each other apart like jackals fighting over a carcass. Lincoln walked over to me. He holstered his gun and put a hand on my shoulder. You okay, Sarah? I looked at Victor, pinned to the floor, his face pressed against the hardwood he had pried up to hide his secrets. I looked at Jessica, weeping hysterically as she was dragged out the door. I am, I said. And for the first time in months, I really meant it. I'm alive. The next 48 hours were a blur of flashing lights, police stations, and statements. I sat in an interrogation room, wrapped in a blanket, recounting every detail. The tea. The lost keys. The dementia. The box. Lincoln sat with me the whole time. He was no longer the disheveled stranger, he was my anchor. When they processed the house, they found everything. The box under the floorboards was just the beginning. They found the vial of liquid nicotine in Victor's shaving kit, the poison he intended to use for the heart attack or slip at the resort. They found text messages on Jessica's phone dating back 6 months, detailing how she had been slowly isolating me, feeding Victor information about my insecurities so he could exploit them. But the most damning evidence came from the car. Lincoln had insisted they sweep Victor's Tesla. In the trunk, under the spare tire carpet, they found a single gold earring. Lab analysis confirmed it belonged to Amanda Foster, the missing woman from Denver. And it had a trace of dried blood on the clasp. Victor wasn't just a con man. He was a serial killer. I asked to see Jessica one last time before they transferred her to the county jail. My lawyer advised against it, but I needed closure. She was sitting in a small holding cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked stripped down, no makeup, hair messy, eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she threw herself against the plexiglass. Sarah, please, she begged. You have to tell them I was brainwashed. He made me do it. I'm your sister. I'm your baby sister. I looked at her. I remembered the soup. I remembered the spit on the floor. I remembered her voice on the phone saying I was dead weight. My sister died a long time ago, Jessica, I said calmly. Or maybe she never existed. Maybe you were always this person, and I was just too blind to see it. I can't go to prison, she wailed. I'm too pretty for prison. Sarah, please. I'll give you everything. I'll sign my share of the inheritance over to you. I don't want your money, I said. And I don't want your apologies. I want justice. For me. And for our father, whom you disrespected every day by plotting to kill his daughter. I turned to walk away. I hate you, she screamed after me, her face contorted into an ugly mask of rage. I always hated you. You always got everything. Dad loved you more. You fat, pathetic loser. I stopped at the door. I didn't look back. Maybe, I said. But I'm the one walking out of here. The trial took place 6 months later. It was a media circus. They called him the Casanova Killer. Victor, or Sean, or Michael, sat in the courtroom wearing a cheap suit, looking smaller, older. Without his expensive clothes and his control, he was just a pathetic, balding man. I took the stand. I was terrified, but when I looked at Lincoln in the front row, nodding at me, I found my voice. I told the jury about the gaslighting. I told them about the night I pretended to sleep. I played the recording from the necklace. The courtroom went silent as Victor's voice filled the room. Thursday. We'll do it there. A tragic slip. Victor didn't look at me. He stared at the table, jaw clenched. Jessica's trial was separate, but she testified against him in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. She spilled everything. She described how he had bragged about killing Jennifer Walsh. How he had drowned Amanda Foster in a bathtub. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty. On all counts. First-degree murder, for the previous victims. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud. Identity theft. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Coleman, looked at Victor with pure disgust over her spectacles. Mr. Petro, she said. You are a predator of the worst kind. You preyed on love. You preyed on trust. You turned the sanctuary of marriage into a slaughterhouse. She sentenced him to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Jessica got 15 years. She sobbed as they led her away. Victor didn't make a sound. He just looked at me one last time. His eyes were dead. There was no anger, no regret. Just a void. As the bailiff led him out, I stood up. I wanted him to see me standing. Not sleeping. Not drugged. Standing. He looked away first. It has been a year since the verdict. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. I couldn't walk on those floors knowing what had been hidden beneath them. I sold the furniture business too. It was time for a clean slate. I used the money, and the substantial restitution I received from seizing Victor's hidden offshore accounts, to start a foundation. The Jennifer Walsh Initiative. We help women who are victims of romance scams and coercive control. We provide legal aid, private investigators, and safe houses. We teach women how to spot the red flags, the isolation, the gaslighting, the too perfect to be true romance. I work closely with Lincoln. He came out of retirement to head our investigation unit. We make a good team. The antique dealer and the grumpy detective. I'm sitting on the balcony of my new apartment now. It overlooks the ocean, but not a cliff. It's a beach. The sun is setting. I have a cup of tea in my hand. Earl Grey. I made it myself. For a long time I couldn't drink tea. The smell made me panic. But I worked through it. I reclaimed it. Just like I reclaimed my life. I'm not the same Sarah I was. That Sarah was trusting to a fault. She needed someone to complete her. The Sarah I am now is scarred. I have nightmares sometimes. I check the locks on my doors 3 times before bed. I don't date. Not yet. But I am stronger than I ever imagined. I faced a monster in my own bed and I won. If you are listening to this, and if you have that feeling in your gut, that tiny voice whispering that something isn't right, listen to it. Don't let anyone tell you you're crazy. Don't let anyone tell you you're imagining things. Check the floorboards. Check the accounts. Pour out the tea. Because you are not a burden. You are not weak. And you are worth fighting for. I'm Sarah Miller. I'm a survivor. And this is my story.